are. Okay. Whoops. All right. So I am delighted to welcome you to this session entitled Learning During a Pandemic, the First Year University Student Experience. My name is Laskaya, and I'll serve as the session moderator. Also co-moderating our session is Hiroe, Director of Strategic and Planning Initiatives, who works with the Vice Provost for Undergraduate Education and Student Success. Besides managing some of Zoom's technological features, she is recording our session so it can be uploaded to the U of O YouTube channel, where all of today's symposium sessions will eventually be available for public viewing. So Hiroe, do you want to add anything at this point?
Well, welcome everyone, and we're excited to have you here. I'll be assisting with the technical side of things today, and I'll be monitoring the group chat as well. So if you have any questions, type in any issues there.
Okay, great. So the symposium organizers have asked that all non-presenters remain muted on Zoom with your videos also off for the duration of the formal part of the presentation. And this will help reduce the bandwidth that we're using while recording the session. And then in the discussion period after the group presentation, you can unmute and unmask yourselves if you have questions or comments or just want to be seen. And then to the presenters, the three presenters, please remain muted unless you are actually presenting or responding to questions during the Q&A. So today we're here to honor and learn from the research done by three first-year students, Chloe Stevenson, Emily Shinn, and David Lee. Chloe resides right now embodied in San Diego, but here with us via Zoom. Emily lives in Corvallis, Oregon, and David is located in the Seattle area. All three are currently pursuing majors in psychology. They are presenting results from a collaborative project they undertook this spring term that marks the culmination of a year-long course focused on human learning. The course is part of the U of O's first-year runway programs. They've prepared a video that will run for about the first 20 minutes of our session, and then each student will speak live, sharing personal experiences and their individual thoughts on learning during the pandemic and coping with the university's sudden shift to remote education. After their live comments, we'll open for discussions from the audience and further discussion. Did I say questions? Questions from the audience and further discussion. You are welcome to ask questions using the chat feature in Zoom while the presentation unfolds, but we'll wait until the presentation concludes before addressing them. The first speaker on the video will be Chloe Stevenson. Chloe, can you, let me move my script here for a second. Can you wave for us so people know where you are? Okay, thank you. And she's going to provide information about the project's background and our methodology. Emily Shinn and David Lee will then discuss the results of the survey. So can you wave and David wave? Okay, great, thank you. And the survey includes a series of ranked answer questions as well as short answer narrative responses. Chloe then will offer conclusions. Remember that immediately after the video, our speakers will share something of their own experience this spring term, and then we'll open for discussion. So any questions or difficulties before we start the video?
I think we're ready.
Okay, yeah, now I just have to do this again. Okay, I'm still learning.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Can you
My
see
name is
it?
Chloe Stevenson, and I'm here today with Emily Shinn and David Lee. All three of us are first-year students at the University of Oregon. Before we dive into our research about first-year student learning during the pandemic, we would like to give you a better understanding of who we are. Emily, David, and I met in the beginning of our year-long course, Undergraduate Studies 111. This course is dedicated to finding out how humans learn efficiently. Towards the end of winter term, we started discussing how we were going to formulate a study on the freshman's learning experience at the UL. Because of the unusual circumstances of the entire university going online, we decided to exclude fall and winter term and have a primary focus on spring term. As many students have never faced such a leap in education and adulthood, it is a wonderful opportunity to understand the perspectives of students from all walks of life. Since it was the first time that many of us students became self-disciplined from the comfort of our homes, we were fortunate enough to experience this first step into adulthood. But at the same time, we are cut short of our independence due to this untimely pandemic. With the trek back home, many of us are once again in situations that were best left in the past chapters of our lives. By understanding the different perspectives of many students, we are put in the shoes of these unfortunate stories. Coronavirus has made a negative impact around the world, and many people are still in panic mode. Nurses are working as hard as they can to save corona patients. Families nationwide are losing thousands and thousands of dollars due to unemployment, and everyone is trapped in isolation. It is all over the news, but what about the students who are still in school and are doing the best they can to attend online lectures, write a detailed essay every week, help with household chores, and many more? Everyone is dealing with what is happening right now at their best ability. However, we should not let coronavirus inhibit the future lives of college students. Here on the screen is how the university took action of coronavirus. Now, let me walk you through how we formulated our research project. Starting in week 3, our instructor advised us to read multiple articles about how to properly create a survey. After reading those articles, we concluded an online survey was the best and only way to measure the first-year students' opinions. During week 4 and 5, we compiled a list of possible questions to ask the students. We were careful on how we phrased the questions because we wanted to make sure it was very accurate with what we were asking. So we kept the questions short and direct. We created a total of 14 questions. 9 were ranked and 5 were free response. We then finalized our online survey using Google Forms and sent it out to FIGs, runways, departments who teach first-year courses. We left our survey open for all of week 6 for students to fill out. At the start of week 7, we closed the survey in order to accurately interpret the data. We each thoroughly read all the 300+ responses because we wanted to have a better understanding of what each student is struggling with this term. Based on our responses, we realized that the situation turned out to be more difficult than we thought. Through our ranked questions and short responses, we were able to have a visual as to what students are really going through.
Through many discussions and revisions, we were able to come up with a solid list of questions that we could have presented in our survey. From a range of finances to grades, we were able to narrow down the survey to 14 questions that were focused on learning through the pandemic. We chose ranked questions and short answer responses for our 2 different styles of questions. We thought that these 2 types would be easiest to respond to and understand what we were asking. David and I chose to tackle the production and interpretation of the responses that came in. Ideally, we would have liked the survey to be sent to all first-year student emails that we could obtain from the UO, but we went down another path with the help of our professor, Laskaya. She was able to send the survey link out to many of the runway and FIG professors as well as department heads throughout the school. This was a huge help for us students. The 3 of us students also posted the link on our social media accounts in hopes of getting a few more answers. Overall, the survey was open for 8 days, which gave us plenty of time to receive answers. Admittedly, this is where we realized some of the data could be skewed because the survey was not sent to specific first-year only classes. This is why we posed the first question of the survey to have participants identify as either a first year or not. 21 of the respondents said that they were not a first-year student, so we all mutually agreed to remove their data from the survey. However, this data is still available through a shared spreadsheet that Chloe created to better organize the data. We assume that the answers were recorded were honest, but we understand that we cannot prove that all answers are true. Initially, we did not have a target amount of responses to obtain, we just wanted enough to give some thorough data. To our surprise, we were able to collect 307 total responses. The first question asked about how beneficial remote learning has been for the participants. We set 1 as having a very negative experience and 5 as a very beneficial experience. We predicted that the results would look pretty even among the numbers, and as the graph shows, the numbers leaned more towards the negative side of things than the positive. Only 6 respondents answered with a 5, while 56 answered with a 1. The 2 column was chosen the most, which means it's not a completely negative, but not a completely positive situation. The second question asked about how well the university prepared students for remote education. We had 1 be completely unprepared and 5 be most prepared. Personally, I expected this graph to look a little bit more on the unprepared side of things, considering faculty and staff had very limited time to make the adjustment to online learning. The graph does reflect that students did feel more unprepared, but there are more neutral answers in this graph. The third question was comparing person learning with remote learning. We had 1 be entirely different and 5 be exactly the same. As expected, most respondents answered that they were having a completely different experience than they would be having on campus. These results were not surprising considering this is most people's first time having a full schedule of online classes. The fourth question asked about how reasonable and accommodating professors are being in their classes. 1 was set for not reasonable at all, and 5 was set for very reasonable. For some good news, professors are being very reasonable according to students, or students chose the moderate answer. Only 9 people answered that their professor were not being reasonable at all. The fifth question asked about resources available for remote education and how beneficial they've been. Going off of a similar scale, 1 being not beneficial and 5 being very beneficial, 126 respondents answered with a 3, so a moderate amount of help came from the available resources. More students said that they were not helpful at all compared to those who said that they were. The sixth question was similar to the last and asked about how the effectiveness of office hours are going. As you can see on the graph, the results from this question compared to the last are almost identical and refer mainly to the middle option, but leaning more towards the not beneficial side. Looking at short answer responses related to this question, many of the participants said it was harder to communicate and understand through virtual office hours. The seventh question asked respondents about their productivity through the term and whether remote education has made them more productive compared to on-campus learning. As seen in the graph, the results could be opposite from what the university might want them to be. Majority of participants said that they were not being productive at all during this term. Through related short answer questions, students had a variety of changes they would have made to increase their productivity. From communication issues to technical issues, overall, we found that this term was a lot harder for students mentally and physically. For the final question, we asked how likely students would be to come back to remote education. And again, the results mainly leaned on the not so likely side of things. Only 18 people said that they would be fully willing to return to online learning compared to the 114 people that said they would absolutely not return. As you can see through the ranked questions, students do not feel as prepared or productive as they might if they were on campus this term. I would say this result is expected since students had their routine on campus and everything got turned upside down at the news of online education for the spring term. I know for the three of us, the results are fairly accurate to how we feel as well. This makes the data recorded seem very true to how first-year students truly are feeling during this time. The short answer responses seem to correlate well with the bar graphs for the ranked question. Respondents were able to justify their ranked answers through short explanations, which David will talk about.
Throughout history, with each new century, it seems as if the 20s are the worst year. 1720 being the year of the Great Plague of Marcel, 1820 being the year of the cholera outbreak, 1920 being the year of the Spanish flu, and here we are in the year 2020 with the coronavirus. As a student myself, and from my perspective, this term has been one of the most interesting due to the fact that we are all witnessing history being written. We're all here learning. As we're closing down near the end of the term, the survey that my classmates and I have created was made for the first year students to share and express their feelings with what is going on. With short answer questions, students were able to freely express their hardships during these trying times, even though there were only 4 short answer questions. In the space at the end of the survey for students to say whatever they would like, there are still a tremendous amount of responses that help convey the first year students' experience of what is going on in this pandemic. The first short answer was directed for the students to share their opinions on the views of the possible drawbacks or benefits to the online education. With 248 responses received, most students shared only negative experiences that they had so far. One student has stated the following: "My chemistry lab is horrible. I received an A+ last term, but I'm now nearly failing. I don't understand how a hands-on class like this can be transitioned online successfully. I feel like I'm getting punished for it." The unfortunate situation has put a strain on students with the fact that some classes such as chemistry, architecture, music, or physical education classes do not translate to remote learning. An analogy to this could be crossover languages. For example, in Korean, nunchi is the art of being able to be in tune with another person's feelings and being able to handle the situation at hand. There is no direct translation to this word in English, just as some classes just simply cannot be translated over to online. Another student states that this has sent me into a depression. I have no motivation to do anything. I will not get good grades this term, and this will massively hurt my GPA. I'm going to have to make up somehow. Mental health issues are something that many college students deal with due to the tremendous stress that we feel, whether it's from overdue assignments to financial burden. The fact that the student only feels validated with good grades stress this term one that is stress-oriented. To end this question on a high note, many students have mentioned the amount of leniency professors have been expressing towards students during this critical time. With already having a stressful burden on our shoulders, the fact that professors being understanding is a light at the end of the tunnel for us students. The second short answer question asks about how the student feels about the university's preparation for the switch to online learning. For the most part, students have felt that the university could have done more in order to prepare them for this switch, since we should be the main priority. At the same time, students share their sympathy with the school, since this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience with the pandemic creating issues in all aspects of life. One student states that, "I just think that the decision to go online could have been more definitive earlier. We're in kind of a limbo as to whether or not we're going back to campus or not." It is without a doubt that professors share the same struggles as students in terms of restrictions to online education. As students, we understand that there is only so much a professor can do to prepare us, but it wouldn't hurt to make things more clear. Without the face-to-face interactions of lecture halls or office hours, it's hard to understand some policies. But this wouldn't have been a problem if class policies were transparent from the start. As hard as it is, students do understand the struggle that the school and many faculty are experiencing with this switch. One student states, "I'm not sure that there was anything that could have been done." The third short answer prompt pertains to the online office hours and the efficiencies of these online meetings. As we're all put in the same position, professors and students alike, students have felt as if the professors are clueless about some policies as students are, since we are all in this new learning program. One student mentions, "I feel like as if the teachers are as clueless as I am for obvious reasons. So I feel like the office hours and even lectures on Zoom are not beneficial to me or my learning at all." Even with the student expressing their dissatisfaction with office hours, plenty of other students have shared their beliefs that professors are doing everything that they can in order to help the student and make the online learning as smooth as a transition as possible. Another student says, "Office hours are and I can use them well. It's frustrating when they are told the professor does not show without any prior warning, or if the warning is given that lack the office hours won't happen if there are no makeups, all of which has happened to me in 5 weeks of this very hard class. Without those certain complications with individuals, the students that attend office hours gain a sense of relief by having a professor being understandable with situations. The last required problem in the survey asked students about what they wish the university would change for the spring term. As a student, the switch has been rough, and it's transparent the faculty tried their best. The fact is, the students should be the top priority since we're the ones here that are paying thousands of dollars to further our education. So there is an expectation that we wish that are met. One student mentions, prepare the teachers and make sure they're organized. Some aren't organized at all and aren't providing teaching at all. I want to reiterate that these comments do not apply to everyone. Each professor is different. I understand that professors that have done online classes before have had many terms to perfect their online teachings. And professors that were new were thrown in the deep end like the rest of us. Another student mentions, more comprehensive class policies might have been good. It's been pretty confusing for everyone. I think for the instructors to have decided which tools they want to use and how, and then the students to have learned how to navigate each one of the instructors' classes instructors individually. With the stressful nature of this term as students, we feel as if the university could have done more in the sense that they could have done better to make the transition more smoother. At the same time, we understand that we're all in this new situation together. For the end of the survey, students were allowed to share their thoughts. Many students expressed their frustration of the university not complying and going on their own way instead of doing what other schools are doing in the sense of finances and grading. The student states, I'm overall frustrated with the way the university has taken action during this time. I've seen many of my fellow classmates and friends make complaints to the professors or the university itself about the struggles during this time and received no help or sympathy. It's challenging for teachers during this time, but it is even harder on students that lose their jobs, their houses, their families. My tuition is paying for professors to stay at home and record lectures. Meanwhile, I'm out of a job, can't afford to live in my farm, not to mention keep up with course materials and turn in work on time. From a financial standpoint, the university is constantly losing money with this pandemic, and the university staff has been laid off because of it. It's a frustrating situation. As students, we should be the top priority since we're the ones paying for the school. We're the ones that are sticking during these trying times, even though community college is a way cheaper option for a week getting the same type of learning. One student asked, what's preventing me from taking online class at a community college rather than paying out-of-state tuition, paying them through UO? College is a big step for all of us, and furthering our education is one decision we made May 1st of our senior years. The experience that we have all collectively gained ranging from our first midterm at Straub 156 to our first time dining at GSH. It has been a wonderful experience that was cut short due to this unfortunate pandemic. We're all struggling, but waiting patiently for the day that we can go back watching the duck do push-ups for touchdowns at Alton Stadium.
After conducting this research about the first year experience during the pandemic, we have come to the conclusion that some changes should be made within the university to prioritize the student's success, along with recognizing the stressors in the students' everyday lives. As students ourselves, we understand that the university is struggling in their own ways through confusion and complications. We feel that the university should put the students first because we're the ones paying for an education, and this spring term should not be defined as a major setback for us during our remaining years at the University of Oregon. A possible UO student has the ability to be a future scientist that might find a cure to cancer, a future defender to keep the peace around the world, or possibly the future president of the United States. However, in order for the first year students to be successful at the UO, the university must work on being crystal clear with the new grading modifications this spring term. Thank you.
Okay. So now each one of our presenters has, oh, we're getting some applause, verbal applause. So each one of you has, 5 minutes or so to speak to us live about how your own personal situation has been as you've been learning all of a sudden online this term. So why don't we go in order, in the order that you presented, unless you have already decided who was going first, have you? Okay, so why don't we just do Chloe, Emily, and then David? Is that okay?
Of
All right.
course. So yeah, I had to move back from Oregon on March 16th. I had to change my flights and get everything situated because I wasn't expecting to be home this whole spring term. Because the president of Oregon said the first 3 weeks will be remote and that's it. So I only brought the belongings that I was going to need. I still have not gone back to Oregon to collect my belongings, so has been very stressful for me because I still have a lot of things back there, and making the commute back to Eugene from San Diego is a little bit tough because there is no direct flight. So that has always been on my mind, being stressed about that. On top of, I live in a family of 5, so I have a mom, a dad, I have a 9-year-old brother who's in 3rd grade, and I just have a recent college graduate. My older sister just graduated from CU Boulder. It's frustrating because I have a very great bond with my younger brother, and it was hard for him when I left for college. So now that I'm back here, he wants to spend time with me all the time, which I respect. Like he's a little brother, he's a little boy, like he wants to play. But I'm also a full-time student, and I'm trying to get my things done so that I can have a solid GPA. So as a psychology major, my goal is to become a research psychologist once I graduate. And in order to do that, I need to have good grades. And that's one thing I'm lacking right now. I'm having a hard time being self-disciplined as a 19-year-old teenager. I'm having a very hard time being motivated and being driven because I'm stuck at home with my whole family who wants to do things all the time. So that's a little bit stressful. And not only is it stressful because I'm at home, I'm also trying to balance family time with social time, which that's not possible right now. Family time, social time, academic work for my own academics on top with this research project. So I sacrificed not doing a few of my school assignments for this because I felt it was more important because of the other 300 plus students who responded in our survey. They need a voice. They need someone to let them know, let the university know what's going on inside right now. And so I put my schoolwork aside to focus on this. So honestly, right now, my grades are slacking. My grades are slacking, and that's very stressful for me because of course I want to succeed, but I also want to be a voice for other people. So it's just a little bit frustrating. And so I took matters in my own hands, and I decided to email the Executive Vice Provost of Academic Affairs to get a better understanding of what the new grading modifications were made this term. A lot of them are unclear, and I think a lot of students are blindsided with what's actually being said. I don't think they are aware of the grading modifications. So I emailed the Executive Vice Provost of Academic Affairs, and she was very clear with me, and she did answer a lot of my questions, thankfully. And she claimed that they're going to move the 12 credit limit for how many classes you can pass or fail. They're going to increase that number, which is going to be a great benefit for a lot of the students, which I think is absolutely phenomenal because they're actually considering the situations that students are being put in right now. And they're going to be creating, so if you want to pass or fail a class, you can pass it with an asterisk, but it does depend on which major you have, but you can also just talk with the department yourself. But the university is being very understanding with the student situations, but as a student myself, I think it would be more beneficial if they could, what the provost said to me in the email, if she could say that again, but have it on a bigger document. I know she already has, but I think it would be better if she could kind of update it a little bit more, just so students are very, very aware of what the grading modifications are, just so they don't get set back at any way. So Emily?
Okay, thank you, Chloe.
Hi, I'm Emily. I live in Corvallis, Oregon, and the transition home, it's been a little tough. I live in a house with 2 healthcare workers, and my mom is an ER nurse, so she's kind of been thrown in the middle of all of this, which is kind of scary because when I moved back home, we had to like create a plan just in case my mom was exposed and like section off a part of the house that only she can go in for as long as she needed to quarantine. And that was a little scary moving home because all I wanted to do was see my family. And I know Corvallis isn't that far from Eugene, but I feel like I missed out on a lot not being home. And then my stepdad, he works in the OR at Good Sam with my mom here. And the OR actually has a very big rate of exposure as well to COVID. And so it's been a scary time here, but I've been a student full-time at the moment. I'm a full-time puppy caretaker right now, and I'm working a part-time job, a lot of hours a week. And so keeping on top of everything has been a little bit of a struggle, because in Eugene, I definitely had my routine, going to class, coming back, doing my homework, going to work, coming back, doing my homework. And now I just feel like I wake up, school, work, go to bed, which is fine. Only a few more weeks, but it's definitely a lot harder than I thought it would be. And my parents are divorced, and so with the risk I have in this household, my dad actually won't let me go see him. So that's been a little hard because he didn't come to Eugene as often. So I really, really miss my dad, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to see him soon if this gets a little bit better. The situation isn't that bad in Corvallis, but it definitely could get worse, just like it could anywhere else. As for school, this project has definitely taken up a good majority of my focus, but it's been a lot of fun getting to know my partners in this project and just learning about them, and honestly learning so much about all of our different situations, considering the three of us are in 3 different states at the moment, which just seems so strange to me. I feel like everyone's just here in Corvallis with me. So yeah. David.
Hi, everybody. My name's David, and like my classmates before me have said, the move back home has been a struggle, you know. Having everything online is just a blur, you know. It's nice to have everything on my own schedule, you know. I can wake up and do my homework whenever I want, but for me personally, the struggle with this has been the social aspect of everything. Back in Eugene, I could, after like a long day of school, I could just like go outside by the EMU lawn, play some spike ball with my friends, but I can't do that anymore. And especially living in Seattle, it's been rough because I can't go outside of my house without having strange looks at me because I am Asian. And another big thing is my mom has actually been stuck in Korea for the past 7 months. I haven't seen her since the start of school. She had to go back to Korea because my grandma was sick, so my mom had to take care of her. And unfortunately, she was trying to come back before the whole coronavirus got blown out of proportion, but unfortunately, she's stuck there now. But with doing this project, it really opened up my eyes that, you know, even though I'm going through my own personal struggles, some other students have it way worse than me, you know. So every day I just like count my blessings and then, you know, hope for one day that this thing ends and we can all go back to Eugene and have something fun again.
Okay, thank you. So I think what we'll do is invite questions. So Hiroe, did we get any on the chat?
No, we didn't get anything on the chat, but if you have any questions, feel free to unmute and speak up.
Yes, and you can put your videos on too now if you wish.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
And I just wanted to tell you how impressed I am with how you managed to do such a complex project and really pull it off. I mean, and the results are going to be so useful for anybody wanting to do research about student experiences during the pandemic. I just am really so impressed by everything that you did. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So why don't I throw a question out, and then maybe others will have questions as well. But I wondered what challenges you've had to overcome while working on this particular project.
I'll go ahead and start. So I have a bad case of ADHD. So I'm kind of all over the place. So with this project, I got very invested into it. And so I did get a little bit all over the place and a little bit too invested. Like this week, Emily, David, and I, we practically did not get any sleep because we were on Zoom until 1 a.m. discussing this project with our results, just seeing what recommendations we can give to the university. But it's been hard because it's definitely taking my ADHD was not helping with this project. It was just making me all over the place. And I also do suffer from anxiety and depression. So I was having some worries about other things, about possibly being overlooked with this project. So that's probably one of the my worst challenge that I've been dealing with. But now since I'm talking about it and expressing our results and stuff, I feel a little bit better. We're much better, much better.
Some challenges I feel like we went through was the communication. I think the four of us with Professor Laskaya, I think we did a pretty good job communicating, but at the beginning of the term, there were more students that were supposed to be involved in this project. And so that was a little frustrating to have that shift go from like 5 people to work on this project to 3 of us. But I feel like the 3 of us did a really, really good job communicating with each other and just making sure that we were on the same page at all times. Like, it's been great to get to know these guys.
Do you want to add anything, David?
There's nothing really other to mention. Like, I agree with what my classmates before me have said. It's just the communication part, since we're all online, without having that face-to-face interaction, it's been really hard. And like, yeah, for me especially, like I'm pretty much always sleep deprived. I don't really sleep much, so it's been a real struggle to balance this and my other classes. But I'm glad we pulled through in the end.
So Hiroe, did we have a question, I think, go up on chat?
Yes.
Yeah, so Jackie seems to have some question. Jackie, do you want to state your question?
I think Willow was
Okay.
first. I was piggybacking off of her question.
Sorry, Willow, do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. I was wondering how it was deciding on your survey questions and if you found consensus pretty easily on which questions you wanted to use, or if you spent a lot of time considering how you wanted to ask.
I think Emily and David took they're very in charge with the survey, so I think they can answer this one.
So at the beginning of our project, we kind of compiled a list together of what questions we could ask. And after reading a couple articles online and one from SurveyMonkey and another third-party survey website, it like generally recommended like a short and sweet, type of survey, because as psych majors, we've all had to do like questionnaires and such on Sona systems, and after a while we kind of get burned out. So we just like generally wanted to keep it short and ask direct questions for the students' ease.
Was the consensus on which questions to ask really easy, or was that difficult?
I'd say it was pretty easy, if Emily has anything else to add.
I think with the topic of our presentation being the main focus on education, it made it a little bit easier to weed out some of the general questions, I guess. But there's also been, you could even tell through like the short answer responses in our survey that a lot of people were focused on the financial aspects of this term, considering it's online. Most people had to move back home. And so I think that's something first year students maybe did want us to address, but because of the topic of our presentation, we just chose to keep that out of there and just not address the financial aspects of it, since we were more focused on the educational part of it.
Well, do you want to speak to the, because you did get lots of open, you got lots of responses to the open question that did refer to the financial issues. Can you summarize kind of what the concerns were there?
Yeah, so with that, a lot of a lot of students were suggesting to lower tuition, which is understandable, and I understand where they're coming from, but it's not rational because everyone's losing money. So everyone is losing money. So what is lowering tuition going to do? It's not going to help the university. Yes, it might help families temporarily, but it's not going to solve their entire problem. So instead of lowering tuition, I think what students were trying to get at where it was, how come I can't just drop out of UO and then do community college online? It's the same kind of education that we're receiving right now, but the prices, UO is up here and community college is down here. So what's stopping me? And that worried me because I love University of Oregon. It's been my dream school for a very long time. And it's just sad to see that some students are really considering on dropping out because of this pandemic. And I think the university should really, I really hope that they're listening to the students' perspectives on this, because technically we are the future. This is our future, and we don't want this to be a setback for us. So I think that it's very crucial that the students' opinions are heard right now. But then again, we do understand that the university is dealing with their own challenges. People are being let go. So we understand that they're doing the best that they can. But I think they should listen to some of the students' opinions about this as well. Let's see. Okay, so it looks like we have Julia's question about.
Well, I think Hiroe is going to summarize a question that's up there. She's following it. That's her job.
Perfect. Okay.
So are there any changes you would like to make to the questions if you were to do it again? Or also Amy added, are there any follow-up questions or topics you like to pursue if you were to do an ongoing project?
Let's see.
For me personally, if I were to change the survey, I think I would personally add more open-ended questions, or not open-ended questions, short answer questions, because this project for me is all about learning and having the voices heard of the students' perspectives of this. So instead of having the ranked questions, by having students type out their answers, they can more freely express themselves,
And then let's see. Did you work?
So one of the other questions Julia asked if you could state precisely. So maybe Emily, you could take this on. Could you restate one more time what your recommendations to the university and to professors would be?
Yeah, so I think a lot of students are concerned with the grades and the workload in their classes. And so Chloe, she went on a deep dive with this for a few days with grades and how the grading system works with the pass with an asterisk, pass without an asterisk, because coming into college, that was confusing for me to learn because you don't have that in high school. But now with the pandemic, the university had talked about changing that kind of grade. But like Chloe said, it's based on department. So I think a lot of students would like professors and probably their certain colleges to reconsider the grade system and not be so hard, because at least for me, I feel like this term has been a lot of busy work and not a whole lot of focused, you know, precise to the classwork. So I think a lot of students are feeling that right now because professors might not understand that like we're taking other classes. I know I have a class like that. So I think students really want the professors to like reconsider how accommodating they're being on the grading scale and maybe not grade so hard, because a lot of students are dealing with like technical issues or family issues. And so if I turn in an assignment 5 minutes after the due date, I think a lot of students want there to be some leniency with that and maybe not count that as a missing assignment or a late assignment. So I think it's just more towards like recommending to professors about the leniency on grades and like making it a little bit easier for students to not stress out so much about it.
Can you describe what you called busy work for us so that we have a pretty good idea? I think I know what you, but I'd love to hear it from you.
Yeah, so at least in my experience, so I'm taking more credits this year than I've taken, or this term than I've taken all year. And so some of my core classes that I'm taking right now there's like, for one of them, there's an assignment that has 4 different parts. They're all due at different times, twice a week. And that's a lot because you can, like, those 4 different assignments are a couple hours of work each. And that's just, it's a lot of work to be going from one class on top of all the other classes. So the busy work, I guess I would define as just like not as important. I don't want to say important, but just not as beneficial to like the learning experience from each class than I think it could be if it was on campus. I just feel like there wouldn't be so many assignments if it was on campus than it is online right now.
Yeah, going on top of that, I think there's a misconception that students have a lot of time on their hands right now because we are stuck at home. But in some cases, yes, there might be some students who are just lay in bed all day and are just relaxing because they get to be at home. But there's some students like Emily who have a job. She lives in a family with healthcare workers. So there's something that's always going that has to be done. But then there's kids who have a hard time prioritizing what's more important, my health, my education. Do I take care of my grandma that's sick right now? Or what do I prioritize? So I think there's that misconception that some professors think that students have a lot of time on their hands, which is why they give out busy work. But in reality, that's not really what's going on.
Well, Amy Hughes asked a question in chat that is, if you were able to do follow-up work on this project, what are some of the other questions and topics that you would like to pursue if you had a chance for this to grow?
I think a question, if we were able to keep going with this project, one thing that keeps getting my attention is I would like to know if students are aware of the grading system. I want to see if they have a good understanding of what the requirements are for all 4 years of undergrad, what the requirements are for their major, because out of the whole 180 credits, they do break it down, but a lot of it overlaps with each other, which is why it can be seen as confusing for some students. It was very confusing on my part. Trying to understand the whole grading system in 2 days is something that I should never have done. But I did get a very good understanding in the end. So I think if I were to add more questions or to keep going with this survey, I would see if the students if they know what the grading modifications are, if they're just aware of them, because some kids don't know, which is why make all classes pass or fail. That already is an option, but there is still that 12 credit limit. But the vice provost, the executive vice provost, emailed me back saying that they're bumping up that limit, which is great, and I really hope that students know about that because that's going to be a very great help.
Right. Yeah. So Emily, were there more other areas that maybe we didn't explore with this survey that you would, if you had time, you'd like to explore?
I think if we were to continue this project, I would maybe send like an end of term survey to see overall how this term went, because we sent this survey out halfway through the term. So I'd just be curious to see if anything had changed when the term was over. And then honestly, depending on how fall term goes, I know that the university announced it would be in person, but if that were to change and it would be online, like how would students feel about that? Because through our survey, there was enough talk about considering community college compared to attending the university in the fall if the university does go online fall term. So I'd be interested to see how students felt about that if that was ended up being announced in the fall that it would be online again.
And Jackie added a question. How do you access the information right now? So students aren't accessing resources or new policy information. How would you recommend that you'll get critical information to students outside of the email and websites?
Okay, so the way that I found out about these grading modifications were because we get, so the UO sends out daily emails about like coronavirus updates, and it was on March 27th where in that email where they send the daily updates for the university, there was a link attached to it about the new grading modifications. So I don't know if students like actually read it or actually click it. The way I think of it, because I'm a student myself, it's kind of like when you download something new on your phone and it says, do you accept the terms and agree? And you just click it, but you don't actually read all of it. You just click it so you don't have to read it. So I think that's what a lot of students are doing. And I think there needs to be something just to really get their attention, like, hey, like, this is not a joke, this is for real, and we want you to understand that this is what's happening, this is the new modifications, we're here to help you. And I think some students are thinking that the university isn't helping the students at all, but they are. They just have to read. They just have to read. So they have access to it. They do have access. But for me, I wanted more clarification, which is why I decided to take matters in my own hands and email Ms. Janet Woodruff-Borden just so I can get more clarification. But I think the email that she responded to me with, I think exactly what she said to me, I think that should be said for all the other students so that they're aware. What she said made it very clear on what the expectations are for this term, and I appreciate that very much. But I just hope that other students are on the same page as everyone else in the university.
Thanks, Chloe. David?
Yeah, I personally don't have anything to add. I agree with Chloe said. You know, for me personally, I get like maybe 20 emails a day, and that's already a lot for me with all the schoolwork I have. So I do the same thing. I just don't really like read the email. I just like, I just skim through it. So, and a lot of my friends personally, they don't know any of the grading changes. So they're just trying to do the best they can to get the grades they can. So yeah, it'd be a lot better if there was something to get the students' attention.
Are you aware of students who needed other resources, not related to grades, but other resources that the university is trying to provide, or that maybe, students aren't aware that the university is trying to provide? So that, I mean, there's a lot more other issues like financial ones and mental health ones, graduation, who knows?
Yeah, so students feel that this term is going to really, really, really take a toll on their 4 years, which could be true depending on their situation. But I think what students, this is the way I viewed the new grading modifications before I emailed the provost. This is what was in the minds of the students. So I'm gonna kind of walk you through what's in the minds of the students, if that's okay.
I was asking about something other than grades, and and I was asking David, sorry, but if there were other issues besides grading, if there are other resources that the university or things the university might be needing to help students with besides the grading question. And sorry, it's just such an awkward space for us to work in. But David, I was kind of interested in whether you and your cohort of friends and colleagues, some of them aren't going to the U of O even, but are in your same situation. If, you know, what's happening with resources for financial aid, are you guys aware of that?
So collectively, like my friend group, they mostly go to the University of Washington, and then I believe they did get a reduced in tuition, and same with my friends at UO. We all collectively believe that, you know, seeing that community college has also they're providing online education, and UO is also providing online education. You know, it seems that going to community college and transferring the credits is so much cheaper. So that's our main like takeaway from it. So we just want cheaper tuition. But a lot of my friends, they're not quite, you know, they're just like me. They have a lot of emails to read, you know, so they just like don't really pay attention to new policies if we get emails of that material. So we're not really aware of what resources there are, and besides finances, mental health is also a big thing. You know, we're all stressed, we're all college students. It's really hard, especially being at home. You know, some of us are in situations that we shouldn't be in. That's why we chose like out-of-state college, or chose to be like on campus, you know, so that's another big thing.
So Chloe, I'm sorry I interrupted you, but is there something that you want to add having to do with the university's communication about students' financial situation or mental health?
I think with the finances, I'm not sure if they've expressed what the deal with that is. But going with mental health, I'm not sure if the university is aware that students have a very increased risk of getting depression or anxiety, or having a fear that they might get coronavirus, or depending on which area they live in. And considering that Emily, David, and I are all psychology majors, we have a decent understanding of mental disorders. And I think it's very crucial, because mental disorders do have a very, very big impact on how you function in your everyday lives. So it's, reading through the comments is definitely taking a big toll, because I suffered from depression before, and just seeing the students who are dealing with it right now, it's just very unfortunate to see that, and I feel their pain, and I know how it feels, and I just think they want the university to know like what they're going through pretty much, and it's not easy trying to balance everything all at once.
Jackie, do you want to add to anything or probe for other information about the success or lack of success that the university is having with communications?
Yeah, I'm wondering if you all think it would be helpful if maybe faculty spend a little bit of time in class addressing some of this, since it seems like the other outreach efforts just aren't getting through. Or would students be frustrated if they kept getting hit with that in class as well?
I mean, yes, they might get frustrated, but maybe they'll have an understanding aspect of it, and they'll hopefully understand that the university is just trying to do everything they can to help them. We're not trying to, the university is not trying to hurt the students whatsoever. They're trying to do the best they can to help. And I think some students are having a hard time understanding that, because the university doesn't understand each student's situation, which is understandable. But I just think that students just need to just be more aware of what the university is trying to do to help, and they're helping. The university is helping. That's what they need to understand as well.
I mean, at least for me, I'm taking FHS 213, and that's a class that is about family issues. And it's also run by 3 different professors. And those 3 professors have been so helpful during this term. And like that class has to deal with a lot of really hard, sensitive topics because it is about family issues. That's what the topic is. And they have been so great at like reaching out with students that might be struggling with a little sensitivity to some of the topics. I know I definitely deal with some of that, and they make sure that you can reach out anytime. You can try to figure out an alternate assignment if that lecture activity was too hard, or if there's a video they want you to watch, well, if you don't think you can get through the video, there might be an article you can read, or like a different video you could watch that's a little bit more sensitive to the topic. And I think if more classes were like that, just even if it's not about coronavirus, if it's just in general, hey, if you need help, reach out to me, like we'll figure something out. I think that would be a lot of help to a lot of students.
I did have another question I put in a chat box that y'all might not have seen. I was wondering if you think the timing of the survey maybe had an impact on the results because you're sending it out right around midterms where students are naturally like incredibly stressed out. So do you think that could have played a role in some of the answers?
Yes, I think that there definitely does play a role because it was during midterms. But a lot students didn't really express their midterms or like worrying about finals or midterms. They kind of were explaining from like weeks 1 to now, like it's kind of explain what's going on in their lives. So I think yes, midterms does have an impact, but not on every student.
I agree with that. So when I created the survey, I kind of had like a trial run of my own. So I shared it with some of my friends that go to different schools because their results weren't in the actual research portion of it. So when I sent it out to some of my friends, their results were aligned with the students that got the survey when it was posted out for the University of Oregon students. So I believe even though it could have affected the midterms and stuff, I don't think it had a huge impact on it.
And I wanted to address Linda's question related to the process of creating the survey. How did you manage to put the surveys together? Did you work with the administrators or staff in research services to create this?
So, go
ahead.
ahead. Okay, so like I said before, we compiled a list of like possible questions we had, and then through Google surveys, I put in individual questions and then arranged them in an order that made sense to me, and then just that's how it was. And then we didn't have any help from UO admissions or whatever, but yeah.
And I think because of that, because we made it clear that this survey is coming from the students, I think it gave the students who were participating in the survey more of a chance to be honest and not feel like what they're saying is too harsh, because it's just Emily, David, and I who are reading the responses. So I think if we were working with the UO administration and we made it clear that we were working with them, I don't think we would have gotten transparent responses.
How did you get email list though of the first year students? Somebody on campus must have helped you get that so you could send out the survey.
Yes, that would be Miss Ann Laskaya. Yeah, she helped us get some emails from the department heads who teach first year courses, other FIGs, other runways. So that was a very, very big help. And without her, we would not have been able to send the survey out to multiple students. So that was very, very helpful. We were all very grateful for that.
Okay, anything else from our guests? So we're approaching the end of the session. So presenters, are there things, anything that's occurred to you that we have not talked about that you wanted to make sure that we thought about before going away from the session? I think you've been, very clear. And, and we've covered a lot of ground, but I just want, before sort of winding down the session, I want to make sure that you, if there were other thoughts, that you have a chance to share those.
I just think one closing thought would be that we should really have an open mind for everyone's opinions about this, because I think everyone's opinion is very important, because this is a pretty controversial topic. So I think that everyone's, if you're a staff member, if you're a student, if you're a family member of a staff at the University of Oregon, I think that everyone's opinion about this is very important, and it should be implemented in this.
Thank you. Okay, well, I'd like to thank all of the guests who attended the session today. And we should also acknowledge the symposium organizers. They have done a Herculean job of moving the UO Undergraduate Symposium from a live event to an online event. And I can tell you, I think that they've probably gone without sleep more than most people I know. And then we also want to thank first year programs, because that's how we have our class and how then we've all met and you've been able to do your research project this term. And then of course, the deepest thanks goes to our presenters, Chloe Stevenson and Emily Shinn and David Lee. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that will conclude our session today.
All righty. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Is that it then, Hiroe?
I believe so.
Okay.
And I'm gonna stop the recording. I'm assuming when I close the screen, it'll stop, so.
Okay. It was so lovely of you to be here with us.
It was a great session, and thank you
Well,
so
thank
much.
you. Take care.
Bye.